when I whet my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will take vengeance upon mine enemies, and I will repay those who hate me. O Lord, raise me to thy right hand and count me among thy saints.
And I am reminded on this holy day of the sad story of Kitty Genovese. As you all may remember, a long time ago, almost 30 years ago, this poor soul cried out for help time and time again, but no person answered her calls. Though many saw, no one so much as called the police. They all just watched as Kitty was being in broad daylight. They watched as her assailant walked away. Now, we must all fear evil men. But there is another kind of evil which we must fear most, and that is the indifference of good men.
I do not fear evil men. I'd like to believe evil men fear the consequences of their unprovoked attacks on me. I'm creating this video to explain why I recently began airing my business on the internet beginning late 2025 instead of keeping it in my personal Gmail and cloud. These videos are also my active resistance to injustice. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing is a famous maxim widely attributed to the 18th century philosopher and statesman Edmund Burke. It emphasizes that passive silence and inaction in the face of injustice or wrongdoing allows evil to flourish, highlighting the moral responsibility to take action. Core message. The quote serves as a powerful reminder that apathy enables wrongdoing and that active resistance to injustice is required for good to prevail. Origins and similar concepts. The thematic origin. While popularized by the Boondock Saint movie, the sentiments echo similar older quotes regarding the indifference of good people. Plato, the price good men pay for indifference to public office is to be ruled by evil men. Elie Wiesel, his 1999 speech, The Peril of Indifference, argued that indifference is more dangerous than anger or hatred. With that being said, you don't pay employees to be indifferent, you pay employees to perform a job. The mission of the U.S. Department of Justice is to uphold the rule of law and to protect civil rights. Has the U.S. ever been safe? 18 United States Code 1001 is a federal statute making it a crime to knowingly and willfully make materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statements. Here are statements I have made to a U.S. attorney, the only U.S. attorney that's been professional and courteous enough to reply to one of my emails. Here's what they wrote. Mr. De La Rosa, we are in receipt of and thank you for the 5 emails you sent today. Here are my statements requesting Federal RICO Act investigation into the New Orleans Police Department and Louisiana State Police. I am indicting LSP and the NOPD as racketeering influence corrupt organizations. The U.S. Attorney continues, the U.S. Department of Justice turns to the Federal Bureau of Investigations to conduct such investigations, as this should the facts and evidence provided constitute a sufficient predicate to initiate an investigation. This means everything to me. Why? The DOJ is in receipt of my evidence in case I am framed again. Aside from having tens of thousands of dollars stolen from me, I also had hundreds, maybe thousands of items with my DNA stolen from me through surreptitious entry. I also had my DNA stolen. It's not supposed to be in a federal database because I'm not a convicted felon. So here are some U.S. attorneys that never contacted me back. Kristen Clark was the top civil rights attorney for the Department of Justice. I contacted her early in 2022 when I found her email on the internet. I've contacted her at least 50 to 100 times. I just wanted to be known. I have never been indifferent to putting criminal police in prison. What am I saying? Evidence of an overt RICO enterprise operating under a DOJ consent decree. That's not good. Next U.S. attorney. Dwayne Evans was the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Louisiana. I have emailed U.S. Attorney Evans 50 to 100 times beginning in 2023 with no response. Chandra Menon has been emailed the most. She is Assistant U.S. Attorney in charge of the Eastern District of Louisiana Public Integrity Unit. I have never received a response from her. That brings me to the current Attorney General, Pam Bondi. I've emailed her to respectfully request federal criminal RICO Act investigations with no response. Harmeet Dillon, the current Assistant Attorney General for the DOJ Civil Rights Division, has also been emailed. She never responded either. That brings me back to the only U.S. attorney that's ever responded to my emails. She advised me to contact the New Orleans FBI and to request the agent on duty. The only problem with that advice is the New Orleans FBI has my phone blocked. What's even stranger was that 5 days after the only email I've ever got a response to, Dan Bongino, the Assistant Deputy Director of the FBI, posted this cryptic message on X. Bongino wrote, "The Director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations. It is a priority for us. What I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into the aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I will never be the same after learning what I've learned." You can pause to read the whole message. Again, on July 26, 2025, Dan Bongino, then acting Deputy Director of the FBI, posted a lengthy cryptic message on his official X account regarding his investigations into government corruption and the weaponization of law enforcement. The post was considered a major, albeit cryptic, statement from within the upper echelons of the FBI regarding internal investigations into the deep state. Also, approval from Washington, D.C. is required to open a RICO Act investigation, FYI. So what did I do next? I emailed Dan Bongino respectfully requesting federal criminal RICO Act investigations into the NOPD and the Louisiana State Police. He did not respond. I then emailed the Director of the FBI, Kash Patel. He did not respond. The U.S. Attorney also recommended I contact an attorney. Here's that email. I wrote price inquiry. The attorney wrote, "We have decided not to represent you in this matter." All this stems from a DOJ consent decree, a quid pro quo agreement that protects criminal enterprises. Liz Murrell, Louisiana's current Attorney General, claimed in a letter to Judge Susie Morgan, whose consent decree protected widespread corruption, that her agreement cost New Orleans taxpayers over $150 million. Here's how I got and get most emails to the internet. Right there above, continued payroll fraud at the NOPD, highlighted in yellow, is Judge Susie Morgan's emails. Here's a couple emails I sent her. Both emails mention RICO and racketeering under her DOJ consent decree. If I'm lying, put me in prison for 5 years. I've emailed her at least 20 to 50 times. It's not easy finding these emails. I'm pretty sure it's on purpose. Judge Susie Morgan relied on consent decree monitors, politically connected attorneys. I contacted this attorney, Jonathan Aroni, probably 50 to 100 times. How can attorneys from Washington effectively monitor police in New Orleans? Here's his partner, Deputy Monitor David Douglas, same law firm. I've emailed him 10 to 20 times. Neither attorney will speak over the phone, returns voicemails, or responds to emails, despite being paid $115,000 a month by taxpayers, not police. That brings me to Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrell. She's never responded to any of my emails. You can find her email on the internet under Post Counsel. Before I sent any emails, I filed this criminal misconduct complaint to address the fact that I had a firearm and cell phone stolen by police. Instead of locating my stolen property and arresting police for their willful criminal misconduct, police sent neighbors, which is the political weaponization of police and intelligence operations. And since filing a report to local police got me targeted and put under surveillance for years, I began to contact the feds in late 2022, early 2022. The moment I mentioned surveillance, I got hung up on and my phone calls got blocked. So in early 2022, I continued filing criminal misconduct complaints with police. This one is with state police. It was ignored for 750 days and it did not investigate the arresting officer. I filed this complaint because the NOPD disappeared me for filing a report of stolen property. They tried to whack me. All I can do is provide the evidence. This was my third complaint with the NOPD and ninth complaint in total. Both these two complaints were created to address the fact that the two previous investigations by NOPD were fraudulent. This next complaint is my fifth to the NOPD and 11th overall. It was created to address the fact that NOPD officers illegally entered my residence without a warrant. They didn't write an incident or electronic police report. They refused to investigate how my neighbor was entering my residence illegally and refused to file a report for stolen items. These next two complaints were filed directly with NOPD's Internal Affairs, PIB. Both were investigated by Dwight Richards, who claimed to have no skin in the game. Dwight Richards created two fraudulent investigation closing letters which continue the furtherance of a RICO enterprise. This is one of the crimes he helped cover up. Here's a self-portrait of the supervisor who said, "Thanks, Dad. Will." Him. After the NOPD deprived me of my rights and tackled me for filing a police report, this same supervisor tackled me on administrative desk duty, then claimed they were having me involuntarily checked out so I could file a report later.
That's what's going to happen. We're just going to bring you to the hospital so they can check you out and we'll take you to report. Don't make a big deal out of it. Good, all right?
I've also sent legal links to every crooked internal affair cop that concisely delineates what constitutes criminal federal RICO predicate acts to make investigators aware of the consequences of actively contributing to the furtherance of a RICO enterprise like this guy. He thinks calling handcuffs bracelets will minimize his criminal exposure. Again, I'm being handcuffed for filing a report.
So you're here to report something? All right, so do what he's asking these braces real quick for a second. That's all.
They come up just as easy as they go up.
That's
Let us
all.
figure out what's going on with you. And if nothing's wrong, we'll pull them right back off.
So, what's the symbology there?
Symbology?
Now that Duffy has relinquished his King Bonehead crown, I see we have an heir to the throne. I'm sure the word you were looking for was symbolism. What is the symbolism there? Let me explain it to you. In Greek and Roman mythology, when you died, you'd have to pay the toll to Charon, the boatman who ferried you across to the gates of judgment. This made sure the dead came to atone for what they did during their lives, the Pictrodala Papaschalius.
Jesus, you're the first one that ever got that.
Yeah, well, I'm an expert in namiology.
In conclusion, I am neither a hunter or a lion. If a proverb is African, why is it written in English instead of Yoruba or Swahili, Harambe? I don't claim to be a good man because I actively pursue my moral responsibilities to take action against injustice. I'm definitely not an expert in namiology. But here's my last name drop. Ethan Trin. He's an investigator for the DOJ Civil Rights Division Special Litigation Section. What's so special about the litigation? It allows the DOJ to circumvent due process and equal protection under law by creating civil remedies to protect widespread criminal misconduct by police. I sent Ethan Trin dozens of emails requesting for him to make criminal referrals on my behalf. Much to my chagrin, Investigator Trin is not equipped to handle criminal matters, supposedly. And when it comes to civil matters, all his findings were eventually retracted in May 2025. The DOJ retracted reports that found systemic unconstitutional policing, including excessive force and racial discrimination. The investigation had previously concluded that departments engaged in a pattern of unlawful behavior, yet no one was arrested. Due process equal protection under law, such as using excessive force and targeting minority communities. Someone's got to keep the jails full. I got plenty of hard labor police perpetrators.